Scene 7. The message nobody was supposed to read. Narration. The Boeing 787 climbed smoothly through 24,000 feet. Outside the windows, the Atlantic shimmered beneath a blanket of broken clouds. Inside the cabin, breakfast service had begun. The aroma of fresh coffee drifted through business class. Passengers laughed quietly. Some watched movies. Others opened laptops. To everyone on board, Flight 482 had become just another routine crossing. But inside the cockpit, nothing felt routine anymore. Captain Michael Turner stared at the aircraft printer. The latest ACARS message wasn't from dispatch. It wasn't from maintenance. It wasn't even from airline security. The sender field displayed only one word: priority. The message contained a digital attachment. First Officer Emma Brooks hesitated. "Captain, you should probably open it." Turner inserted the secure airline authentication card into the cockpit terminal. The file decrypted. Neither pilot spoke. The document wasn't about the airplane. It wasn't about weather. It wasn't about terrorism. Instead, it contained a classified passenger profile. Across the top, bold red letters read, "Do not confront subject during flight." Below that was a photograph. The face looked exactly like the man now, sitting quietly in seat 4D. Only the photograph had been taken nearly 20 years earlier. The attached report listed the man's name. Not Daniel Mercer. Another name. Another identity. Another life. Yet the face hadn't aged. Captain Turner slowly leaned back. "No, that can't be possible." Pilot dialogue. First Officer Brooks. "Maybe it's an old database." Captain Turner. "Look at the dates." Emma looked again. Every official photograph appeared to show exactly the same person. Same hairline. Same eyes. Same facial structure. No visible aging. No explanation. Captain Turner. "This has to be a system error." Emma quietly shook her head. "If it is, it's the most detailed system error I've ever seen." ATC dialogue. New York Center. North Atlantic 482, climb and maintain flight level 370. Captain Turner. "Climb flight level 370, North Atlantic 482. His voice sounded calm. Professional. No controller listening on the frequency could have imagined what was happening inside the cockpit. Passenger reactions. Business travelers continued working. A young girl colored pictures with her mother. An elderly couple toasted with orange juice. Meanwhile, Daniel Mercer calmly accepted another cup of coffee. He thanked Sarah politely. He smiled. He looked like the least suspicious person on board. Yet Sarah noticed something strange. Every few minutes, he glanced toward the emergency exit, then toward the cockpit door. Not nervously, almost as if checking that everything remained exactly where it should be. Technical explanation. Airline operations use encrypted communication systems called ACARS to send secure messages directly to aircraft. Normally, these messages contain weather updates, maintenance information, gate assignments, or operational instructions. Security-related communications are extremely rare. When a captain receives instructions not to confront a passenger, it usually means authorities believe direct interaction could create unnecessary risk. The goal becomes simple. Keep the situation calm. Observe. Wait for law enforcement after landing. Except, this message wasn't warning about violence. It was warning about identity, suspense ending. Then another ACARS message arrived. Only one sentence. The passenger believes no one knows who he really is. But then, Sarah called again. Captain, I think he knows we're watching him. Scene 8, the passenger who knew too much. Narration. Sarah Collins had worked international flights for nearly 16 years. She had dealt with medical emergencies, unruly passengers, engine diversions, even bomb threats. But nothing like this. As she collected breakfast trays, Daniel smiled again. Then, without being asked, he quietly spoke. You're wondering why they moved me. Sarah froze. Professional training kept her expression neutral. I'm sorry, sir. Daniel stirred his coffee. They changed my seat. It wasn't random. They're trying to verify something. Sarah felt a chill. She had never mentioned the reason. No crew member had. The change had been explained simply as an operational adjustment. So how did he know? She forced another smile. Is there anything else I can bring you? Daniel looked out the window. No. They'll figure it out eventually. Then he returned to reading. Sarah walked away. Every instinct told her not to look back. But she did. Daniel wasn't reading anymore. He was watching her reflection in the cabin window. Pilot dialogue. Sarah entered the cockpit. She closed the reinforced door, then quietly repeated every word. Neither pilot interrupted. When she finished, Captain Turner slowly removed his headset. He said that. Sarah nodded. Word for word. Emma spoke first. He knows we're investigating him. Turner immediately contacted airline operations. Operations dialogue. Operations, Flight 482. We need clarification. Passenger in 4 Delta appears aware of security review. Several seconds passed. Then a reply arrived. Continue observation. Authorities request no further interaction. Captain Turner frowned. That's all. The response came back almost instantly. Affirmative. Passenger reactions. Passengers noticed nothing unusual. The flight attendants continued smiling. Drinks were served. Blankets distributed. Cabin lights dimmed slightly. Yet experienced traveler sometimes sensed subtle changes. A businessman noticed Sarah walking more frequently through business class. Another passenger wondered why the cockpit door had opened 3 times within 20 minutes. Tiny observations. Nothing alarming, but enough to create quiet curiosity. Technical explanation. Flight attendants are trained in behavioral observation. Rather than focusing only on dangerous actions, they study patterns. Eye movement, conversation, body language, unusual awareness of crew procedures. Small details often reveal more than obvious behavior. Suspense ending. Then Sarah discovered something impossible. Daniel's meal tray had never been touched. Yet somehow, the coffee cup she'd served him only minutes earlier was completely empty. She was absolutely certain. She had never seen him take a single sip. Scene 9, the manifest changes again. Narration. Cruising now at 37,000 feet, Flight 482 entered the long oceanic crossing. Outside, nothing but endless blue. No diversion airports nearby. No quick return. For the next several hours, everyone on board would remain together, whether they wanted to or not. Inside the cockpit, Emma refreshed the electronic passenger manifest again. She expected nothing new. Instead, the screen flashed. Loading. Synchronizing. Updating. A warning banner appeared. Passenger record modified. Captain Turner leaned closer. Seat 4D no longer displayed unknown passenger. Instead, it displayed a completely different name. A passenger who had checked in, but had never boarded. Emma blinked. What? She refreshed again. Now, the record changed back. Unknown passenger. Refresh. Different name. Refresh. Blank. Refresh. Daniel Mercer. Refresh. Unknown. Captain Turner whispered. This isn't one corrupted file. Something is rewriting the manifest in real time. Pilot dialogue. Emma immediately called operations. Passenger manifest unstable. We're receiving changing identities. Operations answered almost immediately. Flight 482. Disconnect cockpit synchronization immediately. Captain Turner looked surprised. You want us offline? Affirmative. Do not allow further automatic updates. That instruction almost never happened. Modern airliners depend on constant operational data exchange. Disconnecting passenger synchronization was extraordinary. ATC dialogue. Gander Oceanic. North Atlantic 482, report estimating 40 west. Captain, estimate 40 west in 43 minutes. His voice remained calm, even as uncertainty filled the cockpit. Passenger reactions. Cabin lights dimmed further. Many passengers slept. Children curled beneath blankets. Movies played silently across seatback screens. Only one passenger remained completely awake. Daniel Mercer, looking calmly through the window, as though he had crossed this ocean many times before. Technical explanation. Passenger manifests are stored redundantly across airline operational systems. A spontaneous change during flight is almost unheard of. If identities begin changing without authorization, investigators typically suspect one of three causes: database corruption, cyber intrusion, administrative error. But in Flight 482's case, none of those explanations fit. Every security checksum verified correctly. The data itself wasn't damaged. It was authorized by someone, somewhere. Suspense ending. Then at exactly 11:42 UTC, the cockpit printer activated one more time. A single sheet slowly emerged. Captain Turner picked it up. Across the top, one sentence had been typed in bold black letters. Ask HIM about Flight 731. Neither pilot had ever heard of Flight 731. But then, Daniel Mercer quietly stood up from seat 4D and began walking toward the cockpit. It was the morning of September 14, 2025. Flight North Atlantic Airways 482 prepared for another routine transatlantic journey. The aircraft was a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner, one of the safest and most technologically advanced airliners in service. Its route stretched from New York John F. Kennedy International Airport to London Heathrow. Weather conditions were nearly perfect. Gentle winds, excellent visibility, only light turbulence forecast over the North Atlantic. Captain Michael Turner, a veteran with over 16,000 flight hours, had flown this route hundreds of times. Beside him sat First Officer Emma Brooks, calm, methodical, and respected for her attention to detail. Leading the cabin was Senior Flight Attendant Sarah Collins, assisted by 8 experienced crew members. There were 214 passengers on board. Families, business executives, students, a retired couple celebrating their 50th anniversary, and one quiet man traveling alone. Seat 2A. His name on the boarding pass read, Daniel Mercer. Nobody noticed him. Nobody remembered speaking to him. He smiled politely. He carried only a slim black backpack. He thanked the crew. He looked exactly like any other premium passenger. But before the aircraft reached cruising altitude, someone inside airline operations would quietly change his seat assignment. Not because of comfort, not because of weight balance, because someone had just uncovered something buried deep inside the airline's reservation system. Something no one could explain. Scene 1: boarding without questions. Narration. Boarding began precisely at 8:05 a.m. Passengers streamed through the jet bridge in a familiar rhythm. Business travelers answered emails. Children stared excitedly through the windows at the Dreamliner's curved wings. The cabin crew welcomed everyone with practiced smiles. Sarah greeted each passenger while discreetly scanning boarding passes. Everything appeared ordinary. When Daniel Mercer approached, nothing stood out. His passport matched. His boarding pass scanned green. His luggage met cabin requirements. He even joked briefly with another passenger waiting to store a carry-on bag. He settled into seat 2A near the front of business class. He placed his backpack beneath the seat. Then he simply looked out the window. Calm, patient, invisible, yet hundreds of miles away. An automated audit server had just begun reviewing overnight reservation updates. Within minutes, it would discover an impossible discrepancy. Pilot dialogue. Captain Turner. Boarding looks smooth today. First Officer Brooks. No delays, fuel uploaded, flight plan accepted. Captain Turner. Let's make London ahead of schedule. Passenger reactions. Passengers chatted comfortably. Coffee was served. Overhead bins closed. Everything felt routine. Exactly the way airlines prefer. Technical explanation. Modern airlines synchronize passenger data across multiple systems. Reservations. Security databases. Passport verification. Weight calculations. Every record is constantly compared to ensure accuracy. Most mismatches involve spelling mistakes or duplicate bookings. Almost none require intervention after boarding. Suspense ending. But at airline headquarters, one computer flagged Daniel Mercer's reservation with a warning code no employee had ever seen. Scene 2: the quiet reclassification. Narration. Inside the airline's operations center, analysts reviewed a flashing notification. Initially, they assumed it was another software malfunction. Until they opened the reservation history. The ticket had been purchased 6 months earlier. Nothing unusual there. But the passenger profile attached to the booking had changed 3 times. Each version contained different biometric references, different archived photographs, different passport histories. Someone or something had rewritten the reservation. A supervisor immediately contacted flight dispatch. Rather than alarming the crew, they issued a discreet cabin instruction. Reassign passenger in seat 2A to seat 4D. The message cited operational reasons. Sarah received the instruction moments before the cabin door closed. She politely approached Daniel. Flight attendant dialogue. Mr. Mercer, we apologize. Due to an operational adjustment, we'd like to move you to another business class seat. Daniel smiled. Of course. No argument. No hesitation. He simply stood, collected his backpack, walked to seat 4D. It seemed almost too easy. Passenger reactions. Nearby travelers barely noticed. People assumed it was another routine seating adjustment. Technical explanation. Cabin reassignments occur regularly. Weight balance. Equipment issues. Broken seats. Crew access. None usually raise concern. Suspense ending. But seconds after Daniel changed seats, the aircraft's electronic passenger manifest updated automatically, and seat 4D suddenly displayed unknown passenger. Scene 3, a name that vanished. Narration. Sarah refreshed her cabin tablet. The system froze. Restarted. Loaded again. Now Daniel Mercer's name had vanished entirely. Seat 4D showed only blank data. No passenger record. No meal request. No loyalty number. Nothing. Yet he was sitting only 15 feet away, reading a magazine. Sarah immediately contacted the cockpit. Pilot dialogue. Sarah. Captain, I think we have a manifest problem. Captain Turner. What kind of problem? Sarah. One passenger disappeared from the system. Silence. First Officer Brooks. Disappeared. Technical explanation. Aircraft carry electronic passenger manifests synchronized through satellite communication. These lists identify everyone on board for operational and emergency purposes. An unidentified passenger creates immediate legal and security concerns. Passenger reactions. Still, the cabin remained peaceful. Breakfast orders began. Children laughed. Coffee cups clinked softly. Only 3 crew members knew anything was wrong. Suspense ending. Then the cockpit printer suddenly came alive. A single encrypted message emerged. No sender name. Only 3 words. Verify subject immediately. Scene 4, taxi into uncertainty. Narration. Pushback clearance arrived. The Dreamliner eased away from the gate. Captain Turner read the mysterious message twice. There was no explanation. No instructions beyond monitoring the passenger. No request to return to the gate. Operations responded only with continue flight unless behavior changes. That answer troubled everyone. If the passenger posed a threat, why continue? If he wasn't dangerous, why investigate? Pilot dialogue. Captain Turner. I don't like unknown variables. First Officer Brooks. Neither do I. ATC dialogue. Ground. North Atlantic 482, taxi via Alpha, hold short runway 22 right. Captain. Taxi Alpha, hold short 22 right. Technical explanation. Once taxi begins, returning to the gate requires coordination, fuel considerations, and scheduling impacts. Unless a clear safety issue exists, airlines generally avoid unnecessary returns. Passenger reactions. Passengers admired aircraft outside. No one sensed growing tension inside the cockpit. Suspense ending. Then Sarah quietly whispered over the interphone. Captain. He's watching the cockpit door. Scene 5, the takeoff roll. Narration. Runway lights stretched endlessly ahead. The engines surged with unmistakable power. The Dreamliner accelerated. 80 knots. 100 knots. V1. Rotate. The aircraft lifted gracefully into the morning sky. Below, New York slowly disappeared beneath scattered clouds. Inside the cockpit, however, the crew's attention remained divided. Flying the airplane and wondering about one silent passenger. Daniel never looked nervous. He never stood, never pressed the call button, never asked questions. He simply observed everything, almost as if he expected what was coming. Pilot dialogue. First Officer Brooks. Positive rate. Captain Turner. Gear up. ATC dialogue. North Atlantic 482, contact departure. Passenger reactions. Most passengers relaxed after takeoff. Seatbelt signs remained on briefly. Children pressed their faces against the windows. Technical explanation. The climb phase demands the pilot's full concentration. Yet crews must also monitor any developing security issue simultaneously. Suspense ending. Then airline security sent another encrypted message. This one contained only a photograph. Not of Daniel, but of another man who had vanished in 2007. And the resemblance was impossible to ignore. Nearly 7 hours after departing New York, Flight 482 was descending toward London. The mysterious events that had unfolded over the Atlantic had transformed an ordinary international flight into one of the most closely monitored airline operations of the decade. Daniel Mercer had finally agreed to speak. Not because he had been forced, because he believed the crew deserved an explanation. Inside the reinforced cockpit, with the captain's permission, Sarah remained nearby while Daniel sat calmly in the jump seat. Captain Turner asked the question that had haunted everyone on board. "Who are you?" Daniel looked through the windshield at the glowing horizon. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I bought my ticket legally. I committed no crime. But I also carried another identity, one the reservation system refused to forget." The cockpit fell silent. Daniel slowly removed a worn leather wallet from his jacket. Hidden behind his driver's license was an old airline employee identification card. The photograph was unmistakably him, but the issue date was 2007. The airline printed on the badge no longer existed. It had merged with another carrier nearly 2 decades earlier. The employee number matched archived records. The name did not. Daniel explained that he had once worked as a software engineer on one of Aviation's earliest digital passenger tracking systems. Years before modern cloud databases, he had helped design software that synchronized reservations between multiple airlines after mergers and acquisitions. One project had never been completed: a prototype identity linking system. It was internally nicknamed Flight 731, after the first test route on which it had been deployed. The system's purpose was simple: prevent passengers from losing their travel history when airlines merged. Instead, it created something no one expected. Fragments of historical identities remained linked to old employee records long after they should have been deleted. When airlines modernized their databases, those forgotten links survived deep inside archived systems. Daniel's employee profile had accidentally become permanently connected to his future passenger records. Every time he flew internationally, the old identity awakened. The system tried to merge 2 versions of the same person. It wasn't creating a fake passenger. It was trying to reconcile 2 legitimate identities separated by nearly 20 years. Pilot dialogue. Captain Turner. "So all of this was caused by old software?" Daniel nodded. "Software, and people who assumed old data disappears. It rarely does." First Officer Brooks looked at the encrypted messages still displayed on her screen. They thought you had stolen someone else's identity. Daniel answered quietly. No. The computer thought I had stolen my own. Technical explanation. Large airlines maintain decades of archived operational data. During mergers and technology upgrades, legacy databases are often integrated into newer systems. If historical identity records are not completely removed or mapped correctly, duplicate profiles can occasionally remain dormant for years. In this fictional story, Daniel's employee profile and passenger profile became permanently linked, causing automated security systems to interpret him as two different people occupying the same reservation. Suspense ending. The explanation answered almost every question. Almost. There was still one mystery left. Why had airline security sent the message? Do not confront the passenger. Scene 17. The investigation begins. Narration. Flight 482 landed safely at London Heathrow under the watchful eyes of airport police, airline investigators, cybersecurity specialists, and government officials. Passengers deplaned calmly. Few realized the aircraft had been at the center of a confidential international investigation. Daniel was politely escorted, not in handcuffs but into a secure interview room. Captain Turner, Sarah Collins, and First Officer Brooks spent nearly 6 hours giving statements. Investigators downloaded the aircraft's ACARS messages, electronic logs, and cabin records. Nothing suggested a security threat. Nothing suggested criminal intent. Instead, every piece of evidence pointed toward an extraordinary chain of technical failures. The electronic manifest had rewritten itself multiple times. Historical employee records had overridden current passenger information. Automated identity verification software repeatedly flagged Daniel as both an authorized traveler and an unknown individual. The conflicting records triggered escalating security alerts throughout the airline's network. No human had altered the manifest during flight. The software had done exactly what it had been programmed to do. It simply followed outdated instructions from systems that should have been retired years earlier. Black box analysis. The cockpit voice recorder captured every conversation. Investigators praised the crew for remaining calm, avoiding assumptions, and refusing to confront the passenger without evidence. The flight data recorder confirmed that the aircraft itself had never experienced any technical malfunction. The emergency had never been mechanical. It had been informational. A reminder that in modern aviation, data integrity can be just as important as engine reliability. Passenger reactions. Days later, several passengers learned the true story through international news reports. Many were shocked. Some admitted they never noticed anything unusual. Others remembered only that the crew had seemed unusually attentive. One passenger later told reporters, "The safest thing they did was not panic. If the crew had reacted emotionally, the entire cabin might have become frightened for no reason." Suspense ending. The investigation appeared complete, until cybersecurity analysts discovered one final file buried inside the airline's oldest backup servers. It had never been opened. Not once. Since 2007. Scene 18. The last file. Narration. Deep within the airline's digital archives was an engineering report marked Project Flight 731, Final Review. The document explained everything. Engineers had identified the identity linking flaw 18 years earlier. They recommended deleting every prototype record before the system entered commercial service. Most records were erased. One wasn't. Daniel's. Not because anyone ignored the warning, because a backup server had quietly survived 3 airline mergers and countless software upgrades. The forgotten data continued replicating itself every time reservation systems synchronized. For years, it remained invisible, until Daniel purchased another international ticket. His reservation triggered the dormant archive. Within seconds, dozens of automated systems attempted to resolve conflicting identities. Security software interpreted the event as possible identity fraud. Dispatch believed they might have an unauthorized traveler on board. Only after the investigation did engineers understand that Daniel had never done anything wrong. He had simply become trapped inside aviation's own digital history. Technical explanation. Modern aviation relies on millions of automated decisions every day. While aircraft are designed with multiple physical redundancies, airlines must also protect digital systems with equally rigorous safeguards. Legacy databases, if not properly retired, can introduce unexpected errors into modern operations. This fictional story illustrates how historical data can create complex operational challenges, even when every person involved acts correctly. Ending. Flight 482 reached its destination safely. All 214 passengers arrived home without injury. Captain Michael Turner returned to flying after receiving a commendation for his professionalism. First Officer Emma Brooks later joined an airline cybersecurity advisory committee, helping bridge the gap between flight operations and digital safety. Sarah Collins received recognition for maintaining calm throughout the flight and treating every passenger with dignity, even in the face of uncertainty. Daniel Mercer was formally cleared of all suspicion. The airline issued a public apology and quietly invited him to assist engineers in identifying similar legacy database issues before they could affect another flight. Within months, outdated identity records across the airline's oldest systems were permanently removed. The incident became a case study, not about hijacking, sabotage, or mechanical failure, but about the hidden risks of forgotten data in an increasingly connected aviation world. Final narration. Every flight depends on more than powerful engines and skilled pilots. It depends on trust. Trust between crews. Trust in technology. Trust that every name on a passenger manifest represents a real person with a verified identity. On Flight 482, that trust was tested, not by violence or fear, but by a ghost hidden inside decades-old computer code. The crew never raised their voices. They never rushed to judgment. They followed procedures, remained calm, and allowed facts, not assumptions, to guide every decision. Because in aviation, the greatest safety tool has never been technology alone. It has always been disciplined professionals making careful decisions under pressure. Sometimes the greatest mystery in the sky isn't outside the aircraft. It's hidden inside the systems we trust every day. Fade to black. The end.